Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Clark University Integration and Belonging Hub lecture series. My name is Alfred Babo. I'm one of the co-editors of the book that is featured for this lecture series. The book is Exiled Scholars in Western Academia, Refugees or Intellectuals. And today it's our pleasure to welcome in this second series that features the book two great contributors. Bushu Yasmin, she will uh, open a camera, and also Dr. Mohammed, and they will join me now for our talk, our conversation. Before that, I would like to really thank Clark University again for this great opportunity that the institution is offering to us to talk about our book, but most importantly, to talk about some of the important issues that exiled scholars are going through. The job market in academic environment is a a, a very a question that involves economy, identity, emotion, pain, uncertainty, and sometimes not clear vision of our career. And that sometimes also put us in the middle of questioning ourselves, our choice. If we did well by choosing to move from our countries, or if it was a good choice for us to, to stay where we were resettled. What is the role of our host institution? Of course, we think the host institutions, but we like to question as intellectuals what else could be done, intellectually. So that's really the chance for us and with you to engage that conversation, not to deny what we have benefited from our host institutions, but to critically contribute to reimagining, what could be done to better support the exiled scholars who are contributing to the knowledge production in the host countries. So I would like to take the chance to introduce Busu Yasmin Siben. She's our first speaker, and she wrote a very interesting piece on chapter 6 on this book, The Survival of the Weakest. I won't go further in terms of introducing her. I will give her the chance to introduce herself and then, share her experience dealing with the job market in the United States, because she's in the United States. And later, our second speaker will be sharing his experience with the job market in Europe. So this is a very interesting panel, because we're not just targeting one country, but more than that. It's a global issue. So thank you, Bushu, for agreeing to be with us. And please, you have 15 to maybe 15 to 18 minutes to to present your thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I just want to thank you before going through my journey. I want to thank Alfred, and I want to thank Syed for inviting me to write a chapter on this book, because before than that, I was always going through this whole, since it's a very arduous journey, I was always going through this self-pity, not understanding, not navigating the map right, and all that. But thanks to their invitation, this gave me a chance to sort of look at my journey objectively. And with that being said, that objectivity actually made me understand the reasons why I was going through some struggles, which I thought was very personal struggles, but they were actually not so personal. So to be able to belong to this world of exiled scholars and to understand the difficulties that they are navigating through. And I will start just a brief introduction. Currently, I'm teaching as an associate professor of theater and general education at the College of Southern Idaho. And before than this, I was a 2-year visiting scholar at my alma mater, Bennington College. And before than that, I have spent almost 2 decades teaching in Turkey at Bilgi University and at Istanbul University, a private and a public university. So the reason why I had to leave my country was because I signed a petition, and it was a political petition about some of the oppression against a certain minority in Turkey, the Kurds, and openly by the government. And because of signing that petition that was titled "We will not be a part of this crime," I was sued, I was persecuted, and I had to make the very difficult decision whether to stay back in the home country and be unable to work, or be imprisoned even, or who knows what, or to leave the country. And this had to happen within the course of 1 to 1.5 years. So when I was back in the country, and looking for ways to sort of safely and legally get my family out of Turkey, I ran into this whole like a group of organizations that were trying to reach out to academics like I and me and other scholars that were at risk. And I started making applications to them. And one of those, which is located in the United States, I don't want to give names. You probably will guess who those organizations are, but you can ask me specific questions. Not that I I cannot give names, but the thing is, I think there's a whole system that has its flaws rather than just specific organizations, and that's what the point of my speech today is. So I applied to one of these organizations, and it took me almost a year, or maybe a little bit over a year, to be able to leave the country legally and safely. And by legally and safely, I think this is what's the most important thing in my journey, is that whenever that was the case, I started going through the hurdles of being a refugee scholar. And I think the one answer that I found to explain my journey was in a book that's on the refugees situation here in the United States, and one of the best and most comprehensive books. It's called Suspended Lives. And I based most of my ideas and tried to understand my own journey through the lens of that, and also through the lens of Yarar and Karakashoğlu's article on academic humanitarianism. And those were sort of my guidelines or guideposts throughout this presentation. So one thing, even before leaving the Turkey, that I came across with in terms of the job market, which I wasn't looking at as job market, I was literally trying to escape Turkey and trying to find some safety, like a safe haven for my family for some time. I didn't know how long that was going to be. My whole thing was not being persecuted in front of a judge who would like try everything to persecute me. So I left. I had to leave with my family. So I was looking for some kind of like a haven instead of a job. But from the very, very beginning, all the procedures that went into my coming to being able to be accepted to that particular program and to a university, a whole university, was actually through a very strenuous process that involved a lot of steps that would not be very different from a job application. So all my criteria, all my knowledge, all my scores, all my diplomas, everything, all my writing everything was under scrutiny, which I was doing well, and I did not encounter any difficulty providing those evidences. but it was hard at a time when I need to do that immediately. So that was one of the hardships that I faced right before I left. And then the second thing that was very important was actually the visa situation, because most of us have to leave immediately. We're not really thinking about which visa is going to get us out. But the visas that the scholars rescue organizations usually work with are the visas that are like temporary visas that actually allow the scholars to get out immediately, but then don't have any long-term prospects, whether they have to stay in the host country for longer periods of time. So that was our first sort of like a jump. And I came here through J visa, which allowed me to be able to work for a short period of time at a university, but did not allow my spouse to work any job that is just a voluntary job, perhaps, with a J2 visa. So that was our first thing. And then we came here, and it was all okay for a year because we were trying to understand what was going on. We were literally fish out of a tank. We were newborns. I don't know how many words that I can use to sort of describe what our situation was, but we were trying to understand what the situation was, where we were at back home, and where we were at here, and we were trying to understand what was going to happen to us. So a year went by just trying to understand what was going on, and until the very end of that year, we were not able to understand where we were at in terms of our visa situation either, because either we had to apply for an extension of that visa, or we were trying to get a longer visa, like an asylum and all that. And it took us some time to register even that the visa situation was very critical in the United States, and that we had to actually apply for a visa immediately for asylum because our 1 year was about to come to an end. If we didn't apply in that 1 year, that would have caused us a lot of trouble, which I'm quite sure you probably are aware of at this current moment in this country. So that, and applying for asylum and trying to navigate what our next year is going to be. So we were lucky to extend our visa for another year. And I just want to tell you here that our finding a home or a host institution itself was a very difficult journey. Why? Because the only reason why I could find a host institution for an artistic job like theater that I'm doing was because I was actually, it was my alma mater. And my alma mater accepted me very quickly, in fact, and was able to help with everything that I was going through within their capacities, right? So I applied for another extension, and the scholar at-risk institution that brought me here actually was able to provide me for another year extension, and I was able to stay here and apply for asylum at the same time, which were completely out of luck and out of knowledge. So the other thing that is very important, and I underline it in my chapter 2, is the bureaucratic opacity. Nobody was telling me what was going to happen with my J visa. Nobody is informing me yet about the hurdles that I would be going through if I had to stay in this country further. Which happened to be the case because we looked back and our persecution was in full force back in the country, and we needed to stay here. So now my extension of the second year was coming to an end, and I had to find a job, and that is when it all started, right? And it was very difficult, to say the least. Part of the reason was the legal reason and safety reason, right? I mean, I had to make sure that I have a family, and I have to be able to move that family together to another location. And the other one is the legal situation. We are on visas that are very temporary, and that the universities, especially the higher education institutions here in the United States, are not looking forward to accommodate, because they have to also put a lot of work into your being able to teach at their university. And then the other difficulty is, of course, who am I? And I have this 20 year of experience back in Turkey, but does it translate to the United States, right? It did not. There were things that were probably lacking. Um, for example, I haven't have received any of my degrees beyond BA. I had my BA degree in the United States, but I haven't had them here in the United States. So I had to find my equivalencies, find equivalent diplomas. But even then, there was like a looking down upon the diploma that you got from back home. Luckily, I wasn't really going through any kind of a language hurdle because I have used English as both writing and speaking back in my home country as well, because some of the courses that we were teaching were English and we were expected to publish a lot of publications in English. And publication for me was not an issue. The other issue was, again, who am I? I was looking at those categories of the things that people were hiring, and they were usually looking at the historically disadvantaged populations here and making that a diversity statement, expecting us to belong to certain categories, but not a global sort of outlook on who that minority or diversity could be. So again, and I understand the reasons why, but I did not see myself represented in any of those categories. Like I was like white Caucasian / Middle Eastern. Is a white Caucasian equal to a Middle Eastern here in the United States? No, it's not. And I don't have the same advantages. And plus, back home, I didn't really call myself a Middle Eastern, although part of my country is in the Middle East. Turkish academics usually don't look at themselves represented in the Middle Eastern category either. So it was a whole like, what am I going through? What am I doing? So, and in all the job application help, and the Scholars Rescue Foundations actually helped through that, I was always encouraged to look at institutions that would accommodate me. Which means maybe not look so high and not think that because you were teaching at a really good university back home doesn't mean that you have to teach at a good university here in the United States. You have to be able to find a job and then maybe they will feel accomplished in terms of their tasks. So I luckily found a job. In my first round of applications, I found a job, and I'm saying luckily because COVID didn't happen before than that. I found a job, and 6 months later, COVID happened. And I cannot imagine people going through the same hurdles that we were going through COVID as well. So we were able to find a job. It was a community college where I still teach, and I'm so appreciative of, because I think and I'm also appreciative of the fact that this is a refugee settlement city. So I did not feel the exclusion that many people feel when they make that whole move to what you call like as your maybe long-term position in another university. So I made that move, but then COVID hit. And then with COVID and with the border crisis that was happening in the United States, everything that all of our documentation, which was very fragile and time pressing, like our employment authorization documents, they were all always like getting postponed and postponed, and it did not happen to me, luckily, because there's also a gender difference between the policies that concern the immigrants here. It did not happen to me, but my husband had to wait twice as long for everything. And now that he on an asylum visa, he could work. He's a scholar himself. He could work at a factory in a graveyard shift, because that was the only way that we can hold both jobs together with a child. and he was kicked off from that job because his employment authorization did not come at the time that it was expected to come, and there was no mercy. So he was kicked out of it, and then there we were again, dependent on just one job, and he working DoorDash and doing all other things, trying to make a living, but at the same time trying to sort of like hold up to the expectations that was required of us, teaching full-time, doing this, for me, making productions, maybe for other people, writing publications. Okay, am I out of time? I can't hear you, Alfred.
Yeah, I was just saying if you want to conclude, that would be
Yeah.
good for
Yeah.
us to move
So,
to.
I mean, right now we are doing much better. We both were able to, and if you ask me in the questions how we got to that place, we both have green cards and we're both able to work in the United States. But getting to that level was actually a very arduous work, full of waiting, full of bureaucratic opacity. The invisibility that nobody was really seeing what you were going through, and of course the socioeconomic violence. And I can answer more questions, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity today.
Thank you very much, Bushu, for first for writing this chapter, and second for agreeing to be part of this panel and to share again your experience. But beyond the experience, I'm really asking our audience to get this book, or if they had the chance to read your chapter. It's really beyond just a story. It's a critical academic analysis of what Busu just explained. Thank you again, and
Thank
we will
you.
have the chance to go through the Q&A. If we get questions from our audience, that would be wonderful. I will just now turn to Mohammed. So Mohammed wrote a very interesting chapter 9 on the exiled, with the title "Exiled Yemeni Scholar in Western Academia: Perils and Promises." Of course, his experience is certainly different from Bushu's experience. She focused on what happened to her from the beginning, but I guess Mohammed's chapter is more emphasizes more the experience in the host country and with the host institution. So, Mohammed, please introduce yourself, tell a little bit about your story, and then share your thought with us related to the job market, the economy. As we can see, the job for immigrants or for exiled scholars really involved in some countries the legal part, the legal status. I don't know how it is for Germany, but please share your experience with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred, and thank you so much for involving me in the book with a chapter I wanted to write long before. And also many thanks to Clark University and the wonderful people behind organizing this webinar. In fact, since 2012, I was an assistant professor of English literature and post-colonial studies in Yemen. I was also the head of English department for 5 years and the director of a TOEFL language center for the same period. But in 2019, I was forced to flee Yemen with the help of an organization of scholars at risk. And they arranged for me a position in Jordan, where I taught for 2 years. And my family was there in Yemen. I was also worried about them. Luckily, I got a fellowship in Germany. In fact, I got a fellowship in Malaysia and also another fellowship in Germany. That was before the end of my second year of my teaching in Jordan. and I chose Germany because the period of fellowship was 3 years, and in Malaysia was 1 year. So and then I was contacting the embassy about my family, whether I can bring them to Germany, Jordan, and then whether we can travel together to Germany, and they were very supportive. And with the help of the Organization for At-Risk Scholars, I could bring my family from Yemen to Jordan, and then we traveled together to Germany. Now, just I will talk about very briefly about the chapter, and then my experience and the structural barriers in the job market. In my chapter, I talked first about the gap in existing literature on Yemeni academics in exile. Compared to Syrian and Turkish scholars. And also, I outlined the approach that is in autobiography or autobiography. And I talked about the conflict in Yemen very briefly, and then moved towards the journey to exile, how I fled Yemen, and what are the perils and promises, like the German language barriers and the private health insurance, unimaginable academic facilities. For example, the health insurance for a scholarship or a fellowship holder in Germany, we don't pay taxes, and we must register for private health insurance, and it is very costly and does not include many benefits, and you have to pay large amounts of money, and this creates a hurdle. But once my fellowship has been turned into a job, my host university, I could be involved in the public insurance, and that was very effective for me. In fact, there are unimaginable academic facilities in Germany, like these are things that we miss in our country. Although I was the head of the English department, I didn't have a separate office, but here as a postdoc, I have a large office maintained with all facilities, internet, printer, telephone, and everything. And also there's a regular and all-inclusive mentoring that I found to be very helpful. But there are also problems, like the structural barriers that are happening in Germany. For example, as I said, I was forced to flee Yemen, and this has interrupted my career. But the problem is that the system here does not recognize this kind of interruption. Although my CV may show gaps, but in fact those gaps are not empty. They are filled with war, survival, and the effort to continue thinking and teaching under impossible conditions. So I was in a state of what I called in my chapter a liminal or a third place in betweenness position, because I was not considered, I was neither an early postdoc, because the date of my PhD is a bit old. It's in 2012, so 13 years ago, 14 years ago. So I'm not accepted to early career fellowships, and nor am I a senior fellow to be seen as an associate professor or full professor, because they say you don't have enough publications, and that they don't recognize that those publications which are not enough are because of the war, because of this interruption, and they are out of my control. And I'll give you an example. When I got recently, I got a fellowship that turned into a job. and it's just for 20 months. But I was placed at a low level of salary because they said the Human Resource Department, you did not get your education in Germany. That's one reason we cannot place you in. I told them this whole experience of 13 or 14 years or more in and teaching in countries in Yemen and Jordan. I should be at least an associate professor. Had I been in my country, I would have easily been promoted to associate professor or even full professor. But the human resources here said that you did not get your education in Germany, and you did not teach in Germany for a longer time. And they discarded, the 12 fellowships that I got from all over the world and from Germany, prestigious fellowships like Alexander von Humboldt and other fellowships. So 12 fellowships, they said, okay, we don't count them, and we don't count this long experience. You will be put as an entry level scholar, a postdoc. So it's not just, about the salary, it's about the recognition of your whole experience. As Borok said, 20 years of her experience was not regarded. Another example is one of my close friends in a university in Germany. He applied for a job, and he told me that his profile was matching exactly the requirements of the job as the committee members, some of the committee members told him that your profile is the best of all the candidates. That was before the selection. But they asked him, they advised him that it is better not to attend the interview because most of the members of the selection committee are against you. Why? Because the same reason that I got for my recent job is that you did not get your education in Germany. You did not teach for long, and also the language, because the language that is language level, required from the candidate is, they say, C2 level, and C2 level in a language is like a native speaker, is almost a native speaker. So how can you expect, foreigners to have this kind of skill in German in an English department? So and also one of the members told him that the candidates are one of the best candidates or competent candidates is a female and young, and so universities prefer, younger people. They don't care about maybe experience. And also there's I learned about this, that there's a kind of statement or a law in Bremen itself that, of course, when two candidates have the same qualifications, of course, a female candidate would be preferred. But my friend said, we were not equal, but they prefer, younger and also German scholars. And if that's the case, what are the opportunities for displaced people? Why not consider their long experience? I'm talking about, success for displaced scholars, comes under much more pressure than is usually seen by host institutions. So it's a kind of difficult, and also, or what we can, maybe we can have a kind of conclusion that it is impossible to get a job in Germany, a permanent job in Germany. because of these things, and also because of bureaucracy and many other hurdles. And there's a rule also that that is working against displaced scholars, which is the mobility rule. The rule says that if you have spent more than 12 months in a host institution or in a country that you wanted to be hosted, you cannot apply for certain fellowships. For example, at the University of Bremen, there were attractive and wonderful opportunities for 5 years, for 6 years that I applied for, but they said, oh, because you have worked in Germany for more than 3 years, more than 12 months in the past 3 years, so you are disqualified, you are not eligible. So it's like a punishment. It's a punishment for you when you have succeeded in staying, in securing funding, fellowship, one fellowship after the other. You should be rewarded for that, but we are excluded from this. And so this is about the first point in the webinar about the structural barriers that we find in the job market. I'll talk about now the psychological pressure and the academic expectations that we have very briefly. I think we suffer, displaced scholars suffer from a kind of double burden. That is, two pressures at the same time. The first one is emotional. The emotional, kind of pressure of displacement, of war, caring for family, thinking about future. Whenever I get a fellowship or a job like the one I have, it's just for 20 months. Then I can celebrate for 1 month, and then I have to think about what comes next. What will happen when this job ends? I have to work very hard to secure another job or another fellowship. And the system is not recognizing my experience. And as I said, the emotional kind of sensation or that feeling of horror and terror that we experienced in our countries due to airstrikes, for example, did not fade away even here. When I am with my family thousands of miles away from Yemen, but whenever me and my wife and children, whenever we hear the sound of the airplane in the German sky, we tremble, our hearts tremble, because we still remember that kind of sound. It's closely associated with horror and terror and blood and screaming and destruction and all kinds of negative things that you can think of. So these things, are not faded away. And the academic system expects us to be free from that, or just to regard it, or we have to produce a lot. Yeah. They expect us to produce a lot, and publish or perish. I agree, but how much can we produce under these circumstances? Luckily, I published 12 publications, and there are 13 forthcoming in 2026. One of them is a book and chapters, and I went to conferences, and so I'm trying to compete and trying to produce a lot. The third and last thing I will talk about is about identity, academic identity, and how we rebuild it. The point I want to make clear is that, exile also is not just about problems, but exile creates new strengths. This is the bright side of displacement, so to say. I liked the phrase in one of the questions of the webinar, transitional expertise. And I think this is what we get. I mean, as displaced scholars, we learn how to move between cultures, how to move between languages and systems, and we create new perspectives for our research. For example, when I came first to Germany, my research was in the post-colonial studies. But when I came here, I was introduced to a new field of studies that I liked and I pursued. It's environmental studies or environmental humanities. I was introduced to climate change. I didn't know about climate change before I come to Germany. And water also, water studies, and a new field of studies that is called blue humanities. So I started thinking about this field, and I liked it. How, I mean, the relationship between humans and water in culture, in literature, in economics, and also in marine sciences. The blue humanities intersects with the humanities and social sciences and marine sciences. So I liked this, and I contacted the person who coined the term, Steve Mintz in the U.S., and I asked him, "Can you come and um, and deliver a lecture for my students?" Because I was teaching the blue humanities. I was teaching narratives of ocean cultures, and he agreed. And then I asked him, "Can we write a book together?" And now we are finishing the book. We are four scholars, Steve Mintz and Serpil Opperman, two pioneers in the field of blue humanities, and we are. I think it will be out the book in 2-3 months now. So the book's title is The Bloomsbury Handbook to the Blue Humanities. So I mean, Exile created opportunities for me, and I went to many conferences abroad with this idea and thinking about the Arabic culture and literature. So I edited book, journal articles, and I created new international collaborations, groups. I co-founded the Bremen Blue Humanities group, and also one group in Cardiff. So my last point about this is that it's about knowledge production. I mean, that displacement, does not destroy identity or academic identity, but it changes it, making it stronger. And this, makes us ask questions about knowledge. Who produces knowledge, and what about the knowledge that displaced scholars produce, as the title of the book that we have written for, intellectuals or refugees? In fact, although we are refugees or displaced scholars, but we are at the same time intellectuals who contribute knowledge to the host institutions, which are not aware of many problems like the ones I have listed. Thank you very much. I hope I did not cross my time a bit.
Thank you, Dr. Muharram. Thank you so much for your very powerful personal and analytical account. I am jumping in here. My name is Anita Fabos. We may have lost Dr. Babo to technical difficulties, but we have a backup plan, and that is me. And I am really delighted now to invite Burcu Yasemin Seben to come back and to invite some comments from our online audience to both of our speakers. And we actually have one first question for both of our speakers in the Q&A. Our colleague, Dr. Ayar Atta, asks a question for both of you. He asks, do you see yourself as part of the elites of the diaspora, or in other words, forced migrants, or do you see yourself as refugees and attempting to support other refugees to integrate and thus make yourself as agents of development in the host country? Maybe Dr. Burcu will start with you, and then we can move to Dr. Muharram.
I don't see myself as an elite. I don't think I even belong to the elite status of the a scholar at the moment with my current position as well. And ever since I came here, even the first day, as Mohammed says, like you bring your own troubles in psychology, which actually affects your health in the long run too. I have tried to make myself accessible and try to answer all the questions, attend all the Q&As, attend all the exiled scholars conferences or programs that were actually utilized by my host institution and by the agencies that brought me here, to be able to transfer some of the knowledge that I've gained in my journey to make some other people's lives easier, let's say. So I think the second is my answer.
For me, I don't think. I mean, I'm thinking of myself as both, maybe a forced migrant and also a refugee who can support others, and become an agent of development in the host country. So, I mean, we are scholars. Why don't we consider ourselves, elites of the diaspora or forced migrants? Maybe both.
Thank you for that. And we have a second question from Dr. Vadim Atnash. He is asking us, first of all, thanking you for sharing your experience. And he wonders, would it be possible to organize a sort of exchange between scholars at risk who are in safe countries but are searching for a job, or some kind of social media group to be useful for some of the issues that you addressed in your talks? Would you like to go first, Burcu, maybe?
I think, yes, I believe that the solidarity groups, whether they're social media or other, are very important. And I know in Germany, for example, the solidarity is actually much more organized because I think they're more precarious in terms of what Mohammed mentioned about the fellowships that need to be reviewed every other year or every 2 years. Whereas in the United States, people can find not like such scholarly jobs, but maybe still be able to teach at certain colleges and universities because the options are limitless. And I think there's also a difference between the way that the German universities or higher education institutions look at teaching versus the people here in the United States look at teaching. So there are very many differences between, like, not just in terms of like the visas and stuff, but the way that people hire in certain countries. So although this knowledge is shared across, I think it would be beneficial for people to be getting organized within their individual countries and hopefully within the United States too, because the United States is so vast that that kind of exchange becomes even more difficult. So yes, I agree there should be more solidarity organizations, but I think they should be, if they're like looking for practical solutions, I think they should be organized within their countries because there's so many differences between those countries.
Yeah, I think Brooke, she answered the question, I mean, already, and I think it's a good idea, I mean, to organize such a kind of exchange between scholars at risk who are, in safe countries, but searching for jobs, because, I mean, we benefit from the workshops that organizations of scholars at risk organize together, and we learn from each other, about the new fellowships, new opportunities, and new jobs. So that would be, I think, beneficial. Yeah.
Thanks to both of you. Maybe before I invite Dr. Babo to come back on, I see he's was able to
Yes,
rejoin the
I'm
webinar.
back.
Hi there. Great. Maybe I could invite you to consider another question from our audience. And this really gets to some of the points that you were both making about the different academic cultures in different university systems, which are quite challenging when you are from, let's say, a third or a fourth, you have experience with other academic cultures and systems. But our guest, Akram Al-Mashraqi, says, I agree with Dr. Muhammad on the importance of navigating between culture and system in the host country. Are there any plans to support scholars from diverse backgrounds? So maybe that was a question of reconsidering or working with our settled colleagues on expanding the understanding of what does diversity include when we're wanting to provide equity, but also a sense of diverse voices in our academies.
Yeah, and this could, I mean, this could be addressed to the organizations of at-risk scholars and host institutions to consider this kind of, diverse background and diversity and equity also. So I think there are plans, but I'm not able to answer it because host institutions know about this.
Right. So let's see. I think we have another question from Nathan Camp. Says, thank you both. If you could make one change to the organizations that support exiled scholars, what would it be?
I think if you're looking at the host, when you say host organizations or the organizations that support exiled scholars, there are like two sets of organizations. One of them is the scholars at risk programs that actually bring the scholars here, and then the host universities or the higher education system within the country. So for the ones that are bringing us here, I think one of the things that I would always look at the time pressure and the humanitarian escape, like humanitarian variable in the escape, because it is an escape. It's not just I'm just wanting to go and do this in another country for 2 years. So the time pressure is very important, and I think people need to be more cautious of that. And then the second thing is the host institutions and host organizations. I think, and maybe it's inevitable, but there's always this judgment or prejudgment about the skills or the knowledge or the things that we bring from our host countries, right? I mean, there's like always there's this they're backward. I think that's like the first conception, and I would not I disagree with that, and I think that is the first judgment that the institutions have to like get over, and I cannot do it for them. They have to understand the level of expertise, skills, and knowledge that the scholars bring to this country and be aware of and mindful of that.
Yeah, for me, I mean, this question, I like this question, and I will just think about the organizations that bring scholars to the host institutions, because some of the the organizations, they have this kind of condition that if you have lived away from your country for more than 2 years, you are ineligible to apply. So I want to change this. And some other organizations, they say if you have got a fellowship from us or scholarship, you are ineligible to apply again. I mean, I know that the number of candidates is large and it's increasing year by year with the conflict in many other places. But I mean, I had some kind of wonderful opportunities, and I contacted, for example, Alexander von Humboldt and asked them, is there any solution to this? They just apologized and said, we try to make room for others, but we are aware of this difficulty that you need to be, supported again, but that's a difficult thing, Yeah, but at least, the living outside one's country for more than 2 years, it's not, I think it's not, fully, it's not completely fair. Yeah. And it can, if it could change, that would be wonderful.
Right. So
Thank
the
you.
idea to make some more exceptions through understanding the specificities of being a scholar in
Exactly.
exile, and all of that, all what that entails, which I think you've explained to us really, really thoughtfully and profoundly. I think we are close to the end of our time together. And I wanted to thank both of you so, so much for joining us in this second webinar in our series of exiled academics. And we're very, very grateful to you to sharing your not just as Alfred said, not only the particular voices of how you have had to cope with all of the profound disruption and psychological disaster, really, of having to leave your universities and your countries and family members, but also the way that you have brought to bear your academic knowledge and understanding and ability to shape knowledge production in different ways. I think that there's a lot to learn from what you bring to the table. And I would encourage people who don't have an understanding of the particular experiences that displaced scholars bring to the table, that they maybe work to expand some of this understanding. I think this would benefit the entire academy and certainly produce a more robust understanding of displacement and forced migration. So I thank you very much. I will just leave our audience with a couple of links from our colleagues today, including the place where anyone who's interested in a copy of the book or ordering it for your libraries, you are most welcome to seek out the book Exiled Academics, edited by Babo and Sayed. And we have the web pages of our three panelists today. People are more than welcome to continue to be connected with the Integration and Belonging Hub at Clark University, where we really try to tackle some of the issues of othering that go on with people in displaced circumstances, and how can we transform together? How can we transform our institutions together so that more of the equity and voices and participation of displaced folks are part of our societies? So thank you again so much, and I look forward to our next time together. Thanks, Burcu and Mohammed and
Thank you.
Alfred.
Thank you.